Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about Her Majesty Divine Rose 2 palette from McGrath Labs. Yes, I'm really late to the game, I know that, but I really wanted to come and talk to you guys after I have already used the palette quite extensively so that I can give you my thoughts on what I really think about this palette. I didn't want to do like a demo and first impression because I wanted to get to know this palette a little bit better before I come and talk to you about her. Now, the way I'm going to do this video is I'm going to break it down into talking shortly about the release. Then I'm going to do swatches. I want to do a lot of comparison swatches to other shades from Pat McGrath. And in the end of the video, you're going to see 4 no talking speed through demos using the palette. The last one is actually a demo of Divine Rose 1 combined with Divine Rose 2, which I figured might be really fun for you to watch. So I hope you're going to enjoy this video. It's definitely going to be on the long side, so grab yourself something to drink, maybe a little snack, and let's get started. First off, I'm going to talk about the release. I don't want to spend too long talking about it. Bia and I already bitched about it on WhatsApp like so extensively that at this point I feel like I'm boring myself if I bring up the problem again. So I think I'm going to just quickly tell you about the release and why I found it, again, quite stressful. And I'm going to link Charlotte Holtkraut's video in the comments, not in the comments, in my description box, so that you can check it out. She did a great 30-minute overview and summary of what exactly went down and why the Divine Rose 2 release was again a shit show, especially from an international customer point of view, because I feel like that was where things really went south, the international customer community. So what I can tell you is I had the early VIP access codes. She always sends those out about an hour before the official release, so I knew that at 3 p.m. local time I'm going to be able to go on the website and purchase the palette. And knowing how she sends out those early release access codes, I actually was already prepared that around 2:30 p.m. she's going to already have everything up for early VIPs. I saw the early VIP code coming in around 2:40. I saw it like pop up as a notification on my phone, but I was in a Zoom meeting with my colleagues. I was actually presenting, so I didn't really have the opportunity to go on the website ASAP. So I was actually ready for attack at around 3:05 p.m. At that point, I went on the website and I tried to purchase the limited edition pink packaging duo of Divine Rose 1 and Divine Rose 2. I think the first 10 minutes after the early VIP release were aggressive. Okay, they were aggressive. I tried to check out at least 4 times before my payment went through. I was never able to use the 10% early VIP access code, which is fine because I know that she normally refunds if that happens. So basically, when the 10% code didn't work the first time, I was like, fuck it, I prefer to have the palettes. I'll deal with the 10% off refund after that. I just want to be like, I just want to go through the processing as soon as possible before it sells out. Now, the only reason I was able to get the Divine Rose 2 as an international customer in the limited edition pink packaging is because I was in the lane for the duo. And I think the war over the single limited edition Divine Rose 2 was where shit was really aggressive and people got very fucked over. The most important point I wanted to make with this release is it was stressful. It was so stressful. It took me several hours after I had gone through the process to calm down. And even then, I was constantly on Instagram trying to find out what's going on, because after my payment went through, I received an email that my order was received and that confirmation would depend on availability, at which point I was like, the fuck? I'm sorry. If you have a certain amount of units and you have sold this unit to me, you cannot talk about its availability. You sell certain amounts of units, when you reach 0 you say out of stock. I bought it, my payment was processed, what the fuck are you talking about? So I was really irritated with that. Pat McGrath tends to oversell product, which annoys me to no end. But the thing, like I said, that I experienced as the most frustrating was the stress. Let me tell you, I'm 37 years old, I have enough stressors in my life, I don't need to pay to be stressed. I can go and get stressed for free. So I don't want to experience this ever again. If she wants to create that kind of FOMO and that's her marketing strategy, that is fine. I will not participate. Next time she has one of those crazy limited edition releases, I will maybe make an attempt to purchase the product. If it doesn't work out, like it was not working out with the Divine Rose 2 for several times in a row, I'm just going to chill, I'm going to go away and I'll come back and purchase the product if it's still in stock when I feel like it and if I feel like it, because I don't want to be stressed when I purchase luxury makeup. That being said, if I had gone for the black packaging Divine Rose 2, I would have had no issues, everything would have gone smoothly with flying colors. I'm happy to have the limited edition rose gold packaging, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful and it stands out, especially for someone who has an extensive Pat McGrath collection. I like it when something stands out. I like that my Decadence palette is in the gold packaging, I like that Divine Rose 2 is pink, but now that I have two limited edition, you know, types of packaging from her, I'm good. Next time I'm purchasing the black one to avoid stress. And I think hereby I'm going to close the rant about the Pat McGrath Divine Rose 2 release, and I just want to talk to you about the palette, because the palette is actually gorgeous. So let me show you, let me put her back in her home. Let me show you the outside packaging. The outside packaging is absolutely beautiful. It's in the standard cardboard packaging with a little stringy things over here and with the Silence of the Lambs face on it. It has the crown, the pink roses. It's absolutely gorgeous, very much in style for Pat McGrath Labs. And then, like I said, inside you have the palette housed. Mine is in the pink chrome packaging, which means that it's going to be extremely mirror reflective. So I'm just going to open it up and show it to you, because you've probably seen already the pink chrome packaging so many times on other people's channels. You've also already seen the palette, but just let me show you. I've used mine, so it's not clean. I'm sorry. This is how she looks like up close and personal, and this is marketed as the artistry palette, not as an eyeshadow palette. I think the reason for that is this shadow over here, that is the shade Rose Seduction, which is a hot pink, probably because it can stain the eye and contains pigments which are considered non-eye safe by the FDA. It needed to be marketed as an artistry palette. In Europe it would have no problem being marketed as an eyeshadow palette. So without further ado, I think let's just get into my thoughts on the color story. I think this is a beautiful color story. I told you already when I was doing my demo with the Decadence palette that to me this is the most beautiful summer eyeshadow palette release that I've seen in many years, because it screams like cocktails on the beach and warm summer weather, vibrant colors. It's just so beautiful, and it makes so much sense next to the cool toned, more winter appropriate sister, which is Divine Rose 1. I really love the color story of this palette. It's not going to be for everyone because it's not monochromatic. I want to make that very clear. This is not a palette with which you're only going to achieve very pink looks. You can achieve very neutral looks. You can go completely different direction than the color pink, but it is a bit more themed around the color of roses, I guess. So it is not going to be an extreme, it is a very versatile palette, but it's not going to be as versatile as maybe some of her other palettes. That being said, I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I applaud her for including this color here, the color that you probably have heard so much about that your ears are bleeding every time you hear about it, the color VR Extraterrestrial, which is a multichrome. Yes, I know multichromes have been available in the indie makeup community already for several years, ever since Dawn Eyes Cosmetics introduced them to the market, but this is the first time we're seeing multichromes in a not only mainstream but a luxury mainstream brand, which is amazing to me, and I applaud her for that. I'm going to swatch the palette for you, and I'm going to go in this order, starting with the Skin Show shade and then moving on towards the special shades. Then I'm going to repeat the same on the bottom row, and I'm going to talk individually shortly about each of the shades. Starting off with the shade Skin Show Rose Opal. This is a sort of like a satin shimmer with a peachy pink duochrome, very creamy, not very reflective, but definitely the kind of shade that you would really like to use as your inner corner highlight, a more subtle lid shade, or a brow bone highlight, or even use as your face highlight. Next we have what's probably one of my absolute favorite shades from the palette and from Pat McGrath herself, is the color Naked Blush. This is gorgeous. It is the perfect shade of peach. It is not too pink, it is not too orange. It has a little bit of both colors and a little bit of brown, so it's a little bit more subtle. It makes the most beautiful peach eyeshadow ever, and it has a beautiful creamy matte formula to it. I was really missing a shade like this in Pat McGrath's lineup, so I was so happy to have this color. In addition, you can use this shade also as your blush. I've seen multiple people do that, I've tried it myself. Moving on to the next color, which is in her soft, metallic, very reflective type of formula, and one of the most stunning shades is the shade Eleganza. It is a gorgeous light plum with a silvery reflect to it. It's very, very shiny, it's beautiful, it looks gorgeous on the lid. The next color is one that I have a somewhat unhealthy love affair with. It looks like a really boring bronze, but I actually really, really love the undertones of this shade. I think it is so extremely beautiful. It's actually the shade that you see on most of my lid. I really, really love this shade. It has a little bit of sparkle to it. You can make it very shiny if you apply it wet or over a glitter glue. You can blend it out through your crease because it's one of her special shades in the baked, like gelée type of formula. That formula is incredibly versatile. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say that. This is the shade Bronze Rosé 005. Next up we have the shade Gold Lust 001. It's my understanding that this shade has been in one of her first kits when she released her brand. It is a gorgeous, very vibrant, very rich gold, and it seems to have, like, it has a bit of depth to it. I don't know how to explain it. It almost seems like it has a bit of like orangey, reddy, like base tones to it, and it gives it so much depth. I know we're done with the golds from Pat McGrath, but somehow she seems to reinvent the color every single time, and personally I feel like this gold belongs really nicely with the color story of this palette, so I don't mind it at all. Moving on to the bottom row, we have the shade Extreme Burgundy, which is the most beautiful, rich shade of, like, I don't know, deep red wine, deep burgundy. It is beautiful, it is rich, it doesn't lean to brown. Next up we have a beautiful, beautiful shade. This is the shade Divine Dusk, which is a gorgeous, like very warm purple sort of brown with like bronzy and purple shimmer in it. I don't really know how to describe it. It's again a metallic. It's not as punchy as the shade Eleganza, but it's still very, very beautiful. It has a lot of reflect to it. It's very complex and it looks really gorgeous on the lid. I really love that shade. The only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is this is the shade Divine Dusk, and you can see that it has a little bit of a hard pan in it. I can still get product out of it, no problem, but for whatever reason it grows a hard pan. It's just very emollient. I find the metallics in this eyeshadow palette to be even more emollient than her usual formula, and I think that's why it's growing a hard pan, but just, I don't know, I'm a little bit concerned about the hard pan. I don't like it, but at this point it's not a problem in terms of how the shadow performs or the pigmentation, so I'll let it go. Next up we have the shade Rose Seduction, which is sort of like a satin shimmer. I would describe it more as a satin rather than a metallic. It's definitely more on the satin side, and it is a warm, hot pink color. Then Hold Thy Breath, we have the shade VR Sextraterrestrial, which is the Triochrome, which is absolutely beautiful and stunning. I don't know whether my camera will and the lighting will do it justice, but it is absolutely stunning. One of the most beautiful formulas you will find out there for a multichromatic shade. It's just so hard to showcase this color on camera. I don't know why, it's a real struggle, boss, but trust me, in person it is absolutely gorgeous. It shifts from a hot pink to a peachy pink to a lime green gold and then to a forest green. It is absolutely amazing, and like I said, it never gets muddy, it never gets murky. It's very easy to work with because it blends out like a dream. The formula of this eyeshadow is absolutely sublime. It's like silk on your eyes. It's so beautiful. And the last shade in this palette is the shade Astral Pink Moon, which once again you're probably not going to be able to see in its full glory. It is a gorgeous light champagne gold with pink glitter in it. Alrighty, let's move on to the comparison swatches. The first shade that I want to swatch up against another shade from the Mothership 8 palette is the hot pink shade from the Six Pan Subversive palette. So this is the shade Rose Risque, and as you can see it's also a hot pink, and I'm very curious how it looks in comparison to Rose Seduction. I can definitely tell you the two have very different textures, because Rose Risque feels much more like a matte. It's not a matte, but it feels much more like a matte. So let's start by swatching Rose Seduction, which is from Mothership 8, which is a gorgeous warm, like warmer leaning hot pink, as much as hot pink can lean warm. And here you have the shade Rose Risque. I can already tell you I also don't like Rose Risque in terms of its texture compared to Rose Seduction. Rose Seduction has a much smoother texture, but it's also much more like almost metallic when compared to Rose Risque. Rose Risque is a matte with a bit of like a satin finish to it, whereas Rose Seduction is definitely more shimmery compared to Rose Risque. That being said, the two shades are quite similar, but I think Rose Risque definitely leans a bit more blue, so a bit more cool toned. Another shade that I want to actually swatch in here is this one, the light purpley, plummy purpley shade. It's called Euphoria, and it very much reminds me of Eleganza from Divine Rose 2, but I can already tell you, just looking on my fingers, they're very different shades. Eleganza is almost like a silvery plum, whereas Euphoria leans it's much deeper in tone and has much more purple tones to it. Here, oh, actually, you know what? Let's swatch the purple shade from here, which is called Paranormal. Let's swatch this purple shade up against Extreme Burgundy, because maybe they have very similar tones to them. No, actually not really. So Extreme Burgundy leans much more reddish, almost reddish brown, compared to the shade from the six pan in Subversive, which leans much more purple. The next shade I absolutely want to swatch up against a shade in the Mothership 8 palette is this one from, it's originally part of the Decadence palette, but I also have it in one of the six pans. No! I just gouged one of my eyeshadows with my stupid finger, and I don't even have nails. Oh no. I hate this. I hate this so much. Life is so unfair. So you can see a little bit where I put my nail into this shade. But the shade I want to swatch up against is this one over here. This is the shade Gold Standard. It's one of Mother's most abused shades in terms of being re-released in every other palette. And I want to swatch this up against Gold Lust 001. You can already tell this is Gold Lust 001, this is Gold Standard. They're actually very different shades, even though I thought they would be so similar. So let's swatch the shade from Divine Rose 2 first. So this is Gold Lust 001 and this is Gold Standard. Gold Standard is actually much more yellow. This has much deeper, like honey orange tones to it. So even though I thought they would be so similar, they're actually very, very different from each other. Maybe we can like quickly swatch this shade here, the orangey coppery shade. I'm not really sure how it's called, and I'm too lazy to like start flipping around the little plastic insert to find out. But let's swatch this up against Bronze Rosé 005. So this is the shade from Divine Rose 2. This is Bronze Rosé, and this is the shade from Metamorphosis. Okay, they are quite similar. This one just leans like a little bit more pink, and it's not as deep as this shade. And of course they have very different textures. Keep in mind that both Gold Standard and this orangey shade from Metamorphosis are in her standard metallic eyeshadow formula, whereas the other two shades are basically in her baked topper delicious gelée formula. You know what, let's dig out another palette from another brand, because I'm just really curious. I want to swatch this gold shade from the Gold palette by Natasha Denona up against Gold Lust, just to see. Okay, let's watch it right here. I feel like actually the gold shade from the Gold palette is much closer to the gold shade from the Mothership 8 palette. They have like very similar tones to them. The next palette I want to compare to is one that will honestly be just relevant to the people who have the palette, and it was a limited edition palette. This is the Dark Galaxy palette from the Star Wars release, and I want to swatch actually a few of the shades in here up against shades from Mothership 8. I want to swatch this purpley shade up against Eleganza, and I want to swatch the purple matte up against Extreme Burgundy. So let's start with the plummy shade, and let's watch Eleganza. On my fingers they look a bit similar. The shade from the Dark Galaxy palette is just a little bit deeper, but let's watch them on my hand. So here we have Eleganza, and here we have the shade from Dark Galaxy. They have somewhat similar tones to them, but they're still very different in the sense that this one is a duochrome. It has a little bit of like a, I don't know, dirty martini kind of base to it with a purple overlay, and the purple overlay is much deeper in tone compared to the shade from Mothership 8, and it lacks of course that silver sparkle to it. Let's watch the mattes. Venomous Void from Dark Galaxy versus Extreme Burgundy from the Mothership 8 palette. Okay, starting with Mothership 8, Extreme Burgundy, Venomous Void. Oh, they're completely different shades. Venomous Void has so much more purple tones compared to Extreme Burgundy. Actually, looking at the Dark Galaxy palette, I think the gold in there we could swatch up against Bronze Rosé 005. So we have Bronze Rosé from Mothership 8 and the gold shade from Dark Galaxy. Oh, actually they are quite similar. This one's definitely deeper in tone compared to the shade in Mothership 8, but they are not like wildly different from each other. Last but not least, I wanted to quickly show you the Divine Rose 1 palette, where I wanted to compare two different things. First of all, I wanted to show you, do you see how much more textured Astral Solstice looks like? So the Astral shade in Divine Rose 1 compared to the Astral shade in Divine Rose 2. And something I noticed very interestingly, like I said, my friend ordered the original Divine Rose in the pink packaging, and when it arrived I actually asked her to open it up just to make sure everything is fine. And her Divine Rose palette had the new texture, so her Astral shade had the exact same texture as the one in Mothership 8. So she has changed her Astral shade formula. That being said, if I swatch the Astral Moon pink shade, you can see that the sparkle is still very much there. I also use both palettes actually for my highlighter, because in the original Divine Rose palette I use either this on its own or a combination of these two for my highlighter, and in Divine Rose 2 I love to use either this shade on its own, the Skin Show shade, or I use this shade in combination with the Astral shade on my cheekbones, which is what I have today. Honestly, if you don't go ham with this, it looks beautiful and reflective, and it does not look like a glitter bomb. Of course you can see a little bit of glitter sprinkled through it, but it doesn't fall off your face, and it looks really beautiful and reflective and absolutely not unflattering. So you can use this palette for your whole face basically. You can do your eyes, you can do your cheeks, it's incredible. Now, without further rambling, and because my camera is about to overheat again, I'm just going to leave you with the 4 demos.